Welcome back to the weekly news roundup and the dystopian edition. Well, today, before we dive on in, I want to remind you I have a science fiction book coming out in May 12th is our target date. Audiobook might be later than that, but ebook and print book should be right around that time. I'll keep you guys up to date. That is Synaptergy, synaptergy.com or tlm.li/s. Get more information. The orange Get Updates here is the mailing list if you would like to get updates when that is coming out, and I will probably send out some coupon codes prior to that arriving. You can go ahead and click on that guy there. On that same tune, I have actually just also released a free ebook, and I'll have the link for that down below. That is called Lockdown. You can find it also on the community tab on the YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and dive on into the news now, shall we? See what dystopianness is going on. All right, so Facebook will now add propaganda to your newsfeed if you happen to look at fake human malware news. Very interesting indeed. So what happens here is if you're looking at what they consider to be fake news regarding the human malware situations going around, you're like, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. Facebook now detects this and starts feeding you misinformation, aka propaganda, into your timeline. So if you're watching this kind of stuff and then all of a sudden you just start seeing all sorts of things that's like Facebook, like, this is all for your protection, this is all for your protection, this is all for your protection, then know that Facebook is now propagandizing you. And so, of course, you know, what is this information? In fact, I just saw an article or a video before I started the news today from Viva Fry, who is a Montreal lawyer. And up in Canada, they are kicking around the idea of having laws against human malware misinformation, or what he calls the My Sharona Cyrus news up there. And one of the things that he said in there is, well, what do you mean by, quote, fake news? Because he showed the early tweets from The Who back in January, right? Not Tommy and the Pinball Wizard, but the WHO, the World Health Organization, saying, hey, there's no evidence for human-to-human transmission. And then they're like, hey, masks don't do anything. And then now everyone needs to wear a mask. And now it's like what are you guys doing? The Surgeon General even told people don't wear masks early on, if you guys remember. And I'm still I'm still listening to the early Surgeon General, not the late Surgeon General, just an FYI. But nevertheless, what constitutes fake news? If fake news is anything against the narrative, that is a huge problem. Huge problem. Because we have to challenge and question and make sure that we are actually validating things. We can't just listen to the main propagandizing central news legacy media and go, this is exactly it. You're going to be like this. I know, because there's all sorts of people like this in our country right now. You guys got to turn off the news. This is a true story. A friend of mine's mother was like this. Finally, he's like, he finally kept telling her, you need to stop watching the news, Mom. And she eventually just turned it to normal and no big deal and not panicking because she stopped watching the news. People, stop watching the news. They're feeding you a narrative, not giving you truth. All right? All right. Now, also, though, Facebook is now, like, do you guys remember, like, is this not a weird conspiracy to get everybody into all the digital stuff? I mean, here in the United States, we're still good, but in a lot of places around the world, they're not taking cash anymore. It's got human malware on it. Human malware. And so they're using this to push everybody there. Notice that now in my state in Pennsylvania, the governor wants to say, despite the curve is flattened, people. The curve is flattened, all right? In fact, it's going down at this point in time. And still, more cases, more draconian measures are going to be instituted next week. They're like, stores don't let people in unless they're wearing a mask. But if they order online, you can do a curbside pickup. I'm sorry, I'm not giving my information to Wally World or any other grocery store that there can be an ongoing record of what I'm buying and then forcing me to pay with digital money. It ain't happening, Bubba. It ain't happening, all right? And so with all of this, now Facebook is promising UK health officials over 2,000. It's curiously, it's not 2,000. The number is 2,050. I don't know why 2,050 was selected, but they're promising 2,050 portal devices. Remember that this is Facebook's ultra mega camera microphone spyware equipment. And what they're doing is, oh, this is going to help reduce loneliness and improve telehealth. Oh, that's all I want. To have a portal in my home that Facebook has all of my health data and it's always watching me and I give it all of my symptoms. Because no, I don't really want Facebook to have all of these symptoms. I don't want any of these big companies to have all of my data. Big data has no business having my health information. I choose not to participate. I'm sorry, I don't want the mark of the beast. I've read the book. The mark of the beast is bad, okay? And anything that looks like this is kind of looking like this. But anyway, Facebook's coming in and they're kind of working with the health officials to make sure all these people can have these things because, ooh, we're all isolated. We got to have connections. I got news for you people. Nothing beats a hug. Nothing beats spending time with your actual family. And you know what? It should be our choice whether or not we want to take the risk. We need to have truthful information so we know who's actually at risk and who's not actually at risk. And then we need to have the personal choice and freedom to have those risks for ourselves. All right, but the dystopia continues because now Apple and Google, isn't it kind of shocking? There's really only two options you have for phones, Apple and Google. And they're doing a rare collaboration on contact tracing. Now, if you want to read my free ebook, Lockdown, they use contact tracing to throw our main character. I'm not going to complete that sentence. You'll have to read the book. And it's all free. I'll link down below. And the importance of this, like, oh, this is so important. The idea behind contact tracing is that your phone will be able to keep a record of all of the other phones in proximity to it. And so if one person's like, ooh, I've come down with human malware, pushes a button, now everybody else whose phone has had contact could be made known of this. Now, in some instances, that data could go right on up to health officials, and the health officials might come and knock on your door and tell you that you have to quarantine, or you have to take this shot, or you have to get this test, or you have to do these things. Okay? But what they're trying to do, notice how we've whittled down the market to just two. So we basically have a corporatocracy here, an oligarchy, if you will. And now these two are working together to be able to tell which phones came in proximity to which other phones over the course of a 30-day period of time. Now, what I find most disturbing about this, and I believe it was near the bottom of the article, I will have to find it again. Of course, here's how this works. Let's go ahead and look at how this works. Bob and Alice don't know each other, and they have a 10-minute conversation because they were bad people and they were not socially distancing. Bob is positively diagnosed for human malware and enters the system via the Public Health Authority app. Alice and Bob's phones exchange privacy and preserving anonymous identifying beacons. Yeah, right, they do. A few days later, with Bob's consent, for now, his phone pushes the last 14 days of keys for broadcast beacon to the server. Ooh, all of this stuff is on a central server, by the way. Alice's phone periodically checks the broadcast beacon keys to see if anyone has tested positive for human malware, and Alice sees a notification with a link to more information. Alert, you've recently come in contact with someone who has tested positive for human malware. Tap for more information. And so now, sometime later, she's going to receive the notification so she can get more information, all this kind of stuff. So this is what Google and Apple are doing. Now, remember, this is all just to flatten the curve. This is all just this is all temporary, right? What I find interesting, though, is when you go actually down, I think it's down to the very bottom of the article, I will actually have to do a keyword for the word app, because you got to see this, and it might be the next article too. I can't remember exactly if it's this article or the next article. But what I find most interesting, and I want you guys to see this to believe it, they're talking about this is for built-in apps. So you have to just use an app for this. But if it's so temporary, the thing I find problematic is they're saying that eventually it's going to be baked into the system. It must be the next article. So I have 2 articles on this. It's got to be the next article. Let's go ahead and double check this article. Let's go looking for the word app. It's near the very bottom of one of these 2. And what they're saying here, let's see. Okay, so this is the paragraph here. Apple and Google plan to release iOS and Android programming interfaces in May. They will be available to the public authorities for developing apps running on the mobile operating system to work with apps running on the other. The official apps will then be available for download in Apple's App Store and Google Play. Okay, so this is the apps. Eventually, the companies plan to introduce tracing functionality directly into the OSs. Presumably, users can activate the functionality with a setting change. So, if this is a temporary measure, why, pray tell, are you baking this contact tracing feature into the OS itself? Does that not seem like it's an excessive amount of information to be keeping and storing? Now, of course, they promise when this crisis is over, we will dismantle this network. Oh, yeah. I believe that. But nevertheless, if that's ultimately your goal, the best thing is to keep this as an app and not in an underlying system. So that's what Apple and Google are doing. So they got us whittled down to 2 phones, and now they're going to want you to do this. So this news is enough that I'm finally being dedicated enough to keep Bluetooth turned off on my devices. Even though I'm fairly safe running Lineage on my device. But still, nevertheless. Of course, speaking of Apple, Apple makes the mobility data available to aid human malware efforts. So Apple, the privacy company, now is all of a sudden releasing all sorts of data. Now, according to all the information here, they actually, when the data is actually stored about location data, there's nothing that can tie it back to the phone. I'm not sure if I completely believe them or not, but at least that's what they're telling us. So the idea here is, though, you can go into the maps, and I think they have the map over here. I think this is the map. So I think you can go into this map here, and you can type in a city. So like looking at New York City, what they're doing is they're seeing that driving is down 53%, walking is down 75%, transit is down 87%. So these are kind of the baselines and things. I'm not sure what's up with all these spikes. I don't know if that's daily or whatever else that is. You can see how much it dropped down. What this represents to me is a massive drop in economy. Now, before you're like, oh my God, you want to open the economy? Let me tell you something. More people die of suicide, malnutrition, and other things as a result of poverty than will die of human malware. I promise you. Promise you. But you can type in your individual city up here. It only has major cities. So let's see if we do have Philadelphia. Let's see what Philadelphia looks like. Pretty much all the same. Is Pittsburgh in here? Of course not. Pittsburgh's not a big enough city. Erie's definitely not going to be in here. The werewolf of Harrisburg is not in here. But you can go ahead and check these out. But I do find it interesting that it does indeed turn out that Apple does actually have a lot of mobility and other type of data that I've been kind of saying in the past. If you can believe them, then they do strip out all of that data, so it's not possible. But I don't know. What do you guys think? And on our last story in Dystopia today, Amazon must continue limiting shipments to the essentials in France. So in other words, a court order in France is telling Amazon you can only ship essential things. The question is, what is an essential thing? Because essential is a broad meaning. I mean, an essential thing could very well be anything. I mean, anything could be essential, people. Depending on what you're doing. I mean, if you're really hungry, a can of unicorn meat is essential. Getting some unicorn meat is essential. depending on what you're doing with it, anything can be. You know, a coloring book can be essential if you're cooped up inside your house for 6 weeks straight and you have children and they're bouncing off the walls and you're trying to get them something to keep them calm. A coloring book can be essential. But a baseball bat can be essential because you need to get out. Of course, just don't get out and play t-ball with your own family in an empty park. You'll get arrested. But, you know, a baseball that, because getting outside and getting healthy activity. In fact, one of the science articles that I read today is a pleading to not stay indoors so much because you're compounding potential infections, which is true. If you get outside, this is why illnesses in general die out in the summer. When more people are outside, more people engaging in outdoor activity. Buying your kid a baseball and a bat is an essential thing for their health. The problem that Amazon's having with the French courts is they don't have a clear definition of what they can and can't sell, so they keep on fighting back and forth about it. They will be fined heftily on this. But here's the thing. This is the type of stuff that we're starting to see in some other places where certain products are being limited. Of course, in my town, several stores are closed down because they're considered not essential because they don't have essential foods and products and things like this. And all it's doing is it's enriching the global national companies while the small businesses go out of business. So this is kind of problematic, and you can't even, so it started with, hey, you can't go to the local store, you can get your stuff online. Well, now it's getting to the point where we can't even get non-essential things delivered to us anymore. This is a fundamental problem. And so we are getting more dystopian as we go along. Let me know, guys, what you think in the comments down below.